Welcome to Pace Immigration, paceimmigration.com, talking about working holidays with Michael O'Rourke. Michael, good to see you.
Good to see you, Sean. How's it going?
It's going very well. Today we're talking about guidelines for Australians who want to work and travel in Canada. If you're ever out in BC, Michael, which I know you've been, in fact, you're a licensed lawyer there.
Yeah,
and you know that there's Australians all over the place, especially on the ski slopes. Australians love to come to Canada. I've talked to several Australians who weren't on a visa. They were just like a visitor, and they're like, hey, how can I work here? And we thought it'd be a good idea to do this video, and it'd be a fun video too, because who doesn't like to talk about travel and holidays? So, and when's the last time you were on a holiday, Michael? You travel a lot.
Oh, gosh. Actually, a real vacation, I haven't been since January. We went to Costa Rica and Mexico, but soon, sometime in late August, we're going to Spain and Czech Republic to see some friends.
Awesome. Okay, so let's talk about the Australians that want to come over and work in Canada and travel in Canada. This is for the younger set, and we'll get into that with the age limitation stuff. But there's three kinds of ways to work and travel in Canada through what is it called, Michael? The IEC.
It's the International Experience Canada program.
All right, go into that for us.
So International Experience Canada, or IEC, has three different schemes for certain nationalities. These are usually related to youth mobility agreements. So they're bilateral agreements between Canada and the government of a certain country, allowing youth under a certain age to come and have different types of work experiences in Canada. This is in addition to all of the other types of work permit programs that exist for different nationalities, including Australians. And we can do a different video about those because there are quite a few ways that Australians can come and work in Canada. But today we're going to focus on IEC.
Right. So we've got here working holiday, young professionals, and international co-op or internship. We'll talk about young professionals and international co-op a little bit at the end, but we're going to concentrate on the working holiday because that's the main one you hear about a lot, and it's much more open for us young Australians to do something with it. It doesn't tie them down as much as the other two, as it were. So we've got the working holiday here. Michael, talk about the working holiday visa. How does it work?
So this is probably the most flexible program that we have for Australian youth. You don't have to have a job offer coming to Canada. It's a fairly simple application. You can change jobs because you're given an open work permit. So if you hook up with one employer and you don't like them, you can always find another one. And you can take and have different experiences around the country. As you mentioned, Sean, I find a lot of Aussies in BC, but you might find them also in Alberta and Saskatchewan, and occasionally even as far out as Ontario, where I'm at. But it gives you a good option to make some money, see the country, meet people, have experiences that you might not have at home.
Okay, let's get into some of the rules that are about it, the requirements here. Obviously, we're talking to Australians, so you have to be an Australian citizen. We've tossed the word youth around a lot. This one hurts, that it's between ages of 18 and 35 inclusive. That inclusivity there, Michael, does that mean you have, before your visa is over, you still have to be 35?
Yes.
Okay, so it's between the ages of 18 and 35 inclusive. And talk about the Australian passport and the duration of stay.
So you must have an Australian passport. If you are a permanent resident of Australia, you cannot take advantage of this program. Your country of citizenship might have a program with Canada, or you might be able to use an international organization to come to Canada on a working holiday visa. But you must have an Australian passport, and they want the passport to be valid for the 24 months that you can come to Canada and work on this program. So always recommend that if you are going to apply for something like this and your passport's near expiry, renew it.
Okay, I just wanted to also point out that we should be getting, maybe the Canadian Chamber of Commerce or something should be. These are pictures from Canada, by the way, that I looked for from courtesy of Unsplash. We've got there a lake in Alberta, and here we have a ski slope in BC. So these are the things that you can look forward to if you come over. And as we were talking off camera, Michael, if you do go out to BC, plenty of Australians in Whistler taking advantage of the
Well, that's for
slopes and
sure.
stuff. Let's keep going with the requirements. You have to have some cash on you.
Yes, because they want to make sure that you don't come here and then have to go on the dole. So
Right.
you have to have 2,500 Canadian dollars, which is roughly equivalent to 2,500 Australian dollars. You have to have health insurance. You can't be inadmissible, and we've done videos on inadmissibility. That means that you can't have had an immigration violation to Canada in the past. You can't have had a criminal record that rises to any level of severity, like, for instance, no DUI, no murder, things like that. But if there is an inadmissibility issue that you might have, talk to me before you make an application, because you don't want to waste your money if it's not something that or if it's something that's going to hold you back from coming to Canada.
Yep.
Importantly, you also cannot bring your dependents with you on this program. So, say you're married or you have some kids, which is conceivable for a youth of 35. If you have dependents, they have to come to Canada under their own application, either for a visitor visa or for a work permit. They could also theoretically, if they're also a youth under 35, apply for a working holiday visa as well. And then you have
Okay.
to pay the money.
And then you have to pay the fees. The inadmissibility thing, my recommendation, if you've ever had a run in with any arrest or something in your background, no matter what it was for, it's worth talking to Michael just to make sure that things are going to go okay for you. The health insurance stuff, the health insurance for the duration of your stay, I believe I read that you have to have that before you hit the ground. I mean, you have to have that all set up before you come over.
Exactly.
Okay. Let's carry on. We're going to talk about the fine print. We've mentioned this a couple of times. It's valid for up to 24 months. I guess I'll just throw this question at you now. What if I want to stay past that?
Well, you might be able to apply for one of the different IEC programs. You might have found an employer who would sponsor a work permit and give you a job offer that you could get a standard Canadian work permit through. You might find a Canadian and have, fall in love and get married and have that Canadian sponsor you. There are all sorts of ways to stay. Technically, though, on working holiday for Australians, you can only use that program once. But once you're here, you're meeting people, you're doing things. You might even set down roots, even if you didn't plan to do that. So there are different ways that we could approach this if you do want to stay.
Okay, we've got here at the bottom too. I don't want to get too into the minutiae here, but it's like you said, possible to participate in another IEC program. But it is important to note that the working holiday for Australians, this category, it's one time only.
Exactly.
Okay, let's talk about those other programs a little bit because they do matter. Young professionals category. This one, though, it's much more attached to somebody says, I want them to come to Canada.
Exactly. So this more resembles a typical work permit where you need a job offer and you have an employer who's willing to make that offer. This is a little bit easier to get this young professional work permit under the IEC than it would be to get a standard Canadian work permit. But again, you might be able to use this as a stepping stone, come to Canada, test out the employers, see if you like them. And then if everybody loves everybody else, then get an actual typical work permit and stay in Canada more longer term.
Right. We've got here two keys. One is, I think it's kind of self-explanatory, no self-employment. And number two, this one's interesting, must be in your field of expertise. So if you have like an Uncle Joe and he's just going to hire you to work in his office somewhere, it has to match up with your schooling or your work experience or what?
Yeah, exactly. So, if you get Uncle Joe's truck repair shop and you're, I don't know, a doctor or something on that order,
Right.
something that's you're not going to have the skills or the experience to work in Uncle Joe's truck shop, then yeah, it's probably not going to work. And I
Okay.
say that because I have an Uncle Joe who is a trucker. So
Do you really?
yeah, actually,
That's awesome. Okay. We have, wow, it all comes together. This is good.
it really does.
Maybe you can look up his Uncle Joe and get a job. International co-op category is the third one. This one much more tied to education.
Yes. So you have to be not only an Australian citizen, but you have to be enrolled in a university in Australia. So, say you're an Australian citizen in university in Singapore, for instance, this co-op category is not going to work.
Okay, so I wanted to just three things at the bottom because I put them all in and I was like, should I put them all in? But because it's a big jumble of words, but you've got the signed letter of offer, or a signed contract for a work placement, or an internship in Canada. Any of those works.
Yes, exactly. It tries to be flexible,
Yeah.
and it is really just an extension of your Australian degree program.
Okay.
So once you are able to get either an offer letter or a contract or an internship placement, you can use the international co-op program to come to Canada and fulfill that.
What's your experience with this stuff? What kind of numbers are we talking about? Are they capped? Do they say, okay, there's only going to be so many Australians that are allowed versus so many of this nationality, or what?
Those might be in the mobility agreements that Canada negotiates with the foreign governments, and it is reciprocal. So young Canadians can go to Australia, for instance, and do the same types of working holidays and co-op experiences and such. In general, what I see is that they open and they close enrollment periods. So right now the program is open. We never know when they're going to say, oh, had enough, no more applications, until we announce it again. So if you're interested in it, check the website to see if it's open. And if it is then open, make your application or call us and we can help you make the application. But don't rely on it being open all of the time.
Okay. To be 18 to 35 again, Michael. And
to be a youth of 35. I
hitting the
remember
slopes.
35.
Right? 18, not so much. 35, I can get there. Okay,
Yeah.
Michael, thanks a lot for this. If you need any help getting over to Canada, no matter what, make sure you contact Michael O'Rourke at mo'rourke@pacelawfirm.com. But for this video specifically, if you are an Australian looking to do the working holiday, Michael can help you out. Michael, thanks for this. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much, Sean. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.